execute this mandate. This is why we're talking about an integrated public participation approach, and there is a need for us to constantly review, monitor, and evaluate those processes. Incidentally, the House chairperson for committees yesterday scheduled a workshop with the different streams that support public participation, so we can do an assessment of where are the areas that we need to improve on, what are some of the constraints that we've experienced with the recent public hearings that we've hosted, and how we can improve our planning across the board to ensure that we do justice to this mandate and we do not end up having court judgments against Parliament around this format of Parliament. I'm just going to focus very briefly around the roles of the different streams that support our public participation initiatives. This is just an indication of our Public Education Office, the Parliamentary Democracy Offices that's established in the 3 provinces, the Northern Cape, Northwest, and Limpopo. I think what this also tries to highlight is one of our key risks, and it's the limited resources that's allocated to this core mandate. It is something that we have highlighted, and we would want to have this all realigned and prioritize this particular area because it is labor intensive. It does require, considering the number of public hearings that we've seen since the lockdown levels have been lifted, the number of committees going to different provinces at the same time, and it does stretch our staff, and we may incur some labor relations issues around it. So this is a priority area. We have engaged with our Aubrey alignment team to look at a much better and more ideal structure to support the core. This slide just highlights the key roles and perhaps the distinction. Just the distinction in the roles between the Parliamentary Education Office and the Parliamentary Democracy Offices. So to a large extent, PO as we call it, they both share the responsibility for education, educating citizens and promoting public participation. The Parliamentary Democracy Offices to a large extent is responsible for those mandates in the province that they have been assigned to. Because of our resource issues, we do juggle between the colleagues to ensure that we maximize our limited resources, but to provide regular and relevant information to citizens, but also to largely educate citizens about Parliament and how to participate, and to provide information to enable citizens to participate effectively. Public Education Office is tasked with developing the education material and content, and that is shared with our Parliamentary Democracy Offices. We shared also with provincial legislators, and with our distribution that we have now included all the constituency offices that are on our databases. We also see these offices as important connections to make sure that inputs that are received from citizens are not just left at that. That is a one-way engagement. So the Public Education Office has given credence to the feedback mechanism by developing education material around what has happened with pieces of legislation. So if we pass the gender-based violence legislation, it's been assented to by the President. They have now taken on the responsibility to create publications around that, create the awareness that Parliament has now approved this legislation, and this is the impact on the legislation, how it can be utilized effectively. These are just some key products that are developed by this team. So content development, bite-sized messages. I think Secretary calls these those chapters messages. So Secretary, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a Did You Know publication, which is quick snapshot information that we would give to citizens to make it easy to assimilate information around Parliament in those chapters moments. We also do virtual tours, and this is now largely because of the current state of the precinct and the building works that's taking place. We also try to develop interactive learning tools. It's an area we would like to expand on, particularly to reach our youth. And then we do support committees in terms of physical workshops as well as virtual workshops to prepare for participation in public hearings. And then our stakeholder engagement is the area where we want to draw on a network of stakeholders, particularly civil society organizations, to enable us to reach and create more access for participation. Just on constituency offices, the Sixth Parliament strategic plan has highlighted what we will call the triple role of members. And members' roles are not confined simply to work that's done in committees and in the chambers, but that it does extend to constituency offices, and that is an important nodal point for connecting citizens to Parliament. And we thought that it is a good opportunity to establish a connection with parliamentary constituency offices, so at the coalface in terms of engaging citizens. And through this process, we wanted to establish what we call parliamentary corners. What is on the screen now is just an extract of an Ipsos survey. One of the questions in the survey asked, how satisfied were you about the interaction with constituency officers? I think the statistics speaks for itself. We thought that through this process, in terms of engaging with those officers, sharing information around bills before Parliament, but also doing an education program with those officers, we'll be able to change not only statistics, but also accessibility to Parliament, accessibility to information. So we've started the process with the officers of the presiding officers, with chairperson, the CRP and speaker. We've also looked at the high-level panel recommendations, particularly around constituency officers. So this did feature in the ex-president Motlante's report around the impact of legislation and scrutiny of legislation implemented by Parliament. And it did highlight the need for certain information around those constituency offices to be provided to citizens. And what our team in public education started doing was to pull together a map around constituency offices. We did ask political parties to submit this information so that we could then trace where these constituency offices are, but also to get an indication of how many of these offices they can program to visit, take into account the resources that they have, but also when it's constituency period, to be able to engage with those officers to establish connections and then to share information so that that information can then be shared with citizens within the constituency. So if we were to click on any one of the flags, I can't do it right now. This is the kind of information that would pop up, but you would see the speaker's constituency in Makanda, and it will give you the details of who is the field worker in the constituency office, what are the contact details, also the details of the member involved. And we would really want to pursue this as a key project in the 7th Parliament as well, perhaps start with it at an earlier stage. The reason why we thought that constituency offices are important connections with citizens. We see them as information centers for citizens. Deputy Speaker started off with encouraging us to establish parliamentary corners in libraries, and we suggested that perhaps constituency offices would be a better starting point, and we have done so in some of the constituency offices, and we hope to roll it out further this year. We share with them public education materials in all languages, including Braille. So this is one of the engagements that we had with civil society organizations, such as Blind SA, to assist us with translating our public education material in Braille so that we can reach partially sighted citizens. We do share with them the bills before committees so that any citizen can walk into a constituency office and say, I'm aware that Parliament is having engagements on climate change bill or the older person's bill. Can I please get a copy of the bill? So we would really want to make sure that we're able to distribute this to all the constituency offices. Our proposals also being, we are considering an education program for Parliament constituency office staff, largely on the role of Parliament and how to access Parliament and how to submit, for instance, petitions, submissions, and to make representations to Parliament. We also thought that these officers could strengthen that feedback milestone to give feedback to citizens on where the process of law is, or whether a piece of legislation has been passed, to make the final piece of legislation available. Then our engagements with civil society largely started in COVID-19, the advent of COVID-19. We had difficulties in terms of reaching certain communities. So the collaboration started with a certain number of civil society organizations, and we would like to extend that, because in the same way as parliamentary constituency office represents certain constituents, civil society organizations in the same way also represents some of our key stakeholders. We started to work on a memorandum of understanding with civil society organizations, just to make sure that Parliament does not give money. We have important information, and that's information that they can share with their constituents. And this particularly would assist with bills before Parliament or key information for Parliament that requires maybe particular stakeholders to be sensitized to it, to be encouraged to participate in parliamentary processes. Some of the interventions to increase public participation, we have looked at a full IR, the implications of that, particularly during COVID. We've seen, and these were proposals that we made to the House chairpersons of committees to use during COVID, and we are of the view that some of these we could continue with, even post-COVID. Oral submissions via community radio stations, the use of virtual platforms to host public hearings, social media. We've seen an increase in the use of social media, Facebook and Twitter, but also taking into account that not all citizens have access to these media, to make sure that we make data available to those. We're also engaging with our ICT colleagues to look at different ways that we can share information. So some of these that we've listed here are now actually targets on the APP, so dashboards, particularly for committees, is one of the things that we would want to pursue in this financial year, and we will share further information around other ventures that we are currently busy with together with our colleagues in Parliament Communication Services. So this is the public participation webpage that we're developing. All the information that appears here is available in all of the official languages. And we would also want to look at how we can make the web pages available to persons who have sight constraints. It's something that deputy speakers encouraged us to do. These are now, what I'm going to list here now, it's largely further efforts beyond what we've done already to improve our access to citizens and our reach. And these are largely sitting in the domain of Mr. Mutako and his team, the communications team, so that increase the platforms through which Parliament's proceedings are shared, from 2 to 6, including Twitter, Facebook, and other FM. So initially only Parliament TV and YouTube channels were used to broadcast the work of Parliament, and YouTube was previously exclusively used for House sittings. But we now have committee meetings and are also broadcast live, and they're able to live stream 20 committee meetings on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and up to 10 meetings on Iona FM. They also use the repeat functions, and we've seen that on Parliament TV. This is an improvement to what was done previously for 2020. So this is just an indication of the YouTube channel utilized. Some of the information that appears around committees, plenaries, as well as on Sonar. Broadcasting and streaming of public hearings. So this has been introduced to live broadcast public hearings on Parliament TV, on the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels. So public hearings from Friday to Saturday are streamed and the hearings live on social media platforms, and they often choose one meeting that can be live on Parliament TV. So this affords citizens who are not able to attend the hearings in person to be able to follow those hearings. So this is just an example of the increased broadcasting, live streaming of public hearings. Then on the websites, it's been upgraded to be more user-friendly and for public access information to be easily accessible. Again, there's a challenge that the speaker gave us, particularly to look at how we can improve the website for a broader audience, particularly people with sight problems. Public hearings and the calls for submissions are also publicized on the website, and also videos produced and uploaded on social media platforms that are also uploaded onto the website. So the issue of reverse billing is something that we have all pursuing with the major cellular networks, and Tabo can perhaps give us more information around that. So this is just a sense of where we want to move in terms of having a website that's more interactive, multimedia content, and chatbots. So chatbots has been piloted by ICT, and we've had a session with civil society organization, and not just parliamentary staff testing the chatbot, but getting external participants, citizens to experience chatbot and give us immediate feedback on how they experience it and how we can improve on it. Then in terms of content on the Parliament channel, so live shows of important events have been introduced in Parliament TV studios. This is where members are encouraged to participate, particularly chairpersons of committees, so that they can deal with the key issues that are before those committees. So our colleagues in communication services will continue to add fresh content on TV by having regular live shows and weekly and quarterly shows, and then also use this as a means to educate and inform the public about the work of Parliament, and through that to encourage participation. There has been engagements with the House chairpersons and chairpersons of committees to make themselves available and to share what is currently before those committees. And so same as we've done with presiding officers to make sure that we keep the Parliament TV channel alive and to make sure that it has relevant content and real-time content available. Then our colleagues are also raising the issue of human resources that's required, so it's been an underlying theme. So this is just an indication of increased access via virtual platforms and social media, so we can see the change that's taken place between the two financial years and the increase in the following on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. This is something that we will pursue. So these are just extracts from the different platforms. And this picture is just, this is when the chatbot was tested with civil society organizations. So our ICT team, together with our public education team, had a session with some civil society organizations. We asked them to test the chatbot, and CIO can confirm whether the chatbot is called SOTU. The monthly community radio program, so we use GCIS's radio programs to proactively interact with and involve citizens in the affairs of Parliament, and we've drawn on the example of the Parliament of Zambia to use radio to communicate with the community. So the benchmarking is done constantly to see where we can improve. These are really recent examples of chairpersons of committees dealing with the climate change bill and the upstream petroleum bill, engaging with the community. This may look like a jumble picture, but this is another project that we would want to pursue. Obviously, we're considering what the financial implications would be. But this is to have a live dashboard on what we call the Parliamentary Interface Nerve Center. We are engaging with our colleagues in ICT and Parliamentary Communication Services to see what it is that we can do around this, but largely it would be a dashboard that would contain the kind of information that we have listed here. The municipalities, ward committees, parliamentary constituency officers, etc. But also this has got a back, or rather a front end in terms of the citizen being able to call in to this nerve center and requesting information, and for Parliament then to be responsive and to provide that information. We also want to increase the use of social media platforms, but also as a means to use it for citizens to submit petitions. Petitions review is one of the key targets for the APP of 23-24. So to use social media platforms to enable citizens to submit petitions to Parliament. Again, there's an example here of benchmarking, learning from the National Assembly of South Korea and how they are dealing with petitions. So this is an area that we would want to look at. we have about one project, at least two projects, looking at petitions and submissions. It's at a fairly advanced stage. Perhaps the CIO can also give us an update in terms of where we are with the technology. I think ultimately the aim is to, and we've borrowed this from the National Planning Commission, is that we want an active citizenry. We want citizens who would rather make a choice of approaching Parliament and to use alternative measures to raise their voices. And ideally, we would want to get to a situation where citizens understand the role of Parliament, understand the separation of powers, be able to distinguish between the three arms of government. Our Ipsos survey has year on year shown that citizens still, there are still no clarity in terms of distinguishing between Parliament and the executive and the role of Parliament. So we've identified as a key deliverable this year a comprehensive public education program, simply focusing on that aspect. What is the role of Parliament? What is the role of the executive? What is the role of the judiciary? And how do citizens participate in Parliament? And this, again, we borrowed it from the National Planning Council, but this is ideally where we would want to see citizens seeing the legislature as the first contact in terms of raising their concerns, but then also that Parliament is responsive in terms of responding to the needs of citizens. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. I will invite Chairperson through you, my colleague, Mr. Muthapo, if he wishes to add.
Okay, Mr. Muthapo, sorry.
My Lord, yeah, no, no, thank you very much. Ms. Beck dealt with everything. We will wait for the questions, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, can we have a bite or maybe seek clarity, seeking questions, also empower the presentation from Parliament, very interesting, informative. We welcome this presentation. By show of hands, honorable members, please indicate if you want to have a bite, and I will request Nhlanhla to help me in identifying those members. For now, I have Honorable Muletsane, Honorable Kwahube, Honorable Singh, Honorable Khai, okay, I have those 4 hands. Honorable Muletsane, can you start, please?
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me acknowledge the presentation. Mine is a clarity on the issue of the people who are living at disadvantaged areas. The presentation is a little bit quiet about them, knowing the challenges that they are going through. I just want to find out how are they going to assist or to make sure that those people who are living in informal settlements also get that opportunity to participate, especially taking into consideration that the majority of them are unemployed. At the same time, they don't have a luxury of social medias. So to make sure, because I believe that those are the people who really need to participate so that they are able to voice out or to forward their challenges. How is the Parliament going to make sure that they are also incorporated to get opportunity to participate? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Dr. Muletsane. Honorable Kwahube.
Thanks, Chairperson. Mine are 3 questions. The one is whether or not the team has given much thought. I know that in the presentation it was indicated public hearings as a way of public participation. But I think as many of us who've been to public hearings can attest, that it often does not feel as though the community has been fully engaged with what they are there to do. And often the gatherings are politically charged. It's political parties or sending members to go and fill in the holes, or just that there isn't much of community awareness around some of the work that we do. And I know this is not something that would fall under this unit in its entirety, but I think it needs to start somewhere about how do we measure the efficacy of the kind of public participation that we do, because otherwise we run the risk of simply doing these exercises at great public cost, when in fact, communities are still left none the wiser about some of the legislation that we are passing. So that's the one question. And as I say, I know that it's a multi-layered question, which would probably not be solved just entirely by this unit. But I think Parliament is going to need to start thinking about how do we make that public participation in particular in that element a lot more effective, and a lot more that we draw a lot more value from it, and that communities are drawing a lot more value for it. The second question, Chair, is how we are making Parliament relevant to ordinary South Africans. And I think here, particularly the use of social media, YouTube channels and the like, I think we've got to do a far better job at breaking up content of the work that is often done in Parliament generally. Because of course people can follow some of the work that is done on YouTube and the like, but I think there needs to be a link on how is it relevant to you at home. The discussions that I had at the Joint Standing Committee of Financial Management for Parliament, what is its role? Why is it that members of Parliament sit and gather in that committee? So I do think there has to be some thinking around how do you package the information in a way that makes it relevant to ordinary South Africans. It can be relevant to journalists who follow some of these meetings, but how are we packaging the information in a way that is easily digestible, that is interesting to ordinary South Africans, and that makes the link of relevance to them? Then my last question is, with following obviously COVID-19 and the fire in Parliament, we now are unable to, in as much as the Constitution expects us, for members of the public to follow meetings, to be able to attend portfolio committee meetings in Parliament, to be able to attend and observe sittings of Parliament in person. That is currently not happening following COVID-19 and obviously the fire. So I just want to understand from the administration, what is the thinking around engaging people and bringing people back into the institution? Because I think we've got to be careful in around making Parliament as though it is an institution for politicians, because it's not. It's the public's institution. So what is the thinking around, in this current environment where we don't have a fully functional precinct, how are we bringing in ordinary people to be able to engage in the work of Parliament as it was done and as is expected of us by the Constitution? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kwahube. Honorable Singh, you're next. Honorable Singh. It's Honorable Singh. Maybe you are muted. Can you check your mic? I can see you're still on the platform, Honorable Singh. Your hand is still up. Can I now go to Honorable Khai?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Greetings to you and the honorable members and Secretary and the team. Chair, I would like to welcome the presentation. It's very informative. And I see that we are very few here as members of Parliament. I would also perhaps suggest that it should also be presented to other structures in Parliament, Committee of Chairpersons, WIPARI. But I also would like to suggest that also in the 7th Parliament, it should be one of the presentations of induction of members of new members of Parliament. In fact, even old members of Parliament who may be returning in the 7th Parliament. But I also would like to suggest that I see that there are various organizations, civil society organizations that the unit will be interacting with. I would like to suggest that particularly with universities, that it should not only be limited to SRCs, but SRCs should be engaged so that the public education also go down to the students themselves, because there's a lot of apathy, especially when it comes to students, voter apathy. But I would also perhaps suggest that if the unit could also partner with IEC as well to include the issue of voter education, so that when you educate them about their right to vote, they should know then what happened after voting, what happens in Parliament. So if that could be combined, so I would suggest that there should be that kind of a partnership between the Parliament and the IEC on education. But also with regard to public hearings, sometimes we tend to limit these public hearings to legislation. We don't have public hearings around other work of Parliament. For example, what is it that we do when we invite departments to present their strategic plan and their annual plans? The public might not know what is it that we're doing, except when we pitch up for public hearings or other programs such as taking Parliament to the people, provincial, maybe in the case of the NCOP. But other work of Parliament, we don't involve the public as much. But I also want to take further the point that is raised by Honorable Gwahub. I've raised it previously in the meetings of the committee, that for example, when we have a budget votes debates, it's important that if, for example, if we debate in transport, we need to invite those that are in that sector of transport, bus owners or bus drivers, taxi drivers, taxi owners, so that they know what is it that we are debating about, and also what kind of budget that will be going to the sector. I'm just making the example about transport, a debate on small business development. We could invite, especially in the NCOP, because it has not been affected, the gallery is still there, but I would suggest that perhaps other means of giving them link, maybe that will be separate from the link of members so that there's no interference. I don't know. I'm not a fool with regard to that. I hope that there could be maybe a link just for public, for the public to assess the proceedings of the plenaries and committees without necessarily interfering with the proceedings of the meetings, Chair. But also, even with other organizations, other than just the students, but workers, for instance, I see that there's COSATU, but if there could be interaction with individual affiliates of the federations, FEDUSA, NACTU, as well as other federations, so that perhaps this could also be part of their perhaps software training, the understanding of the work of Parliament, but also other mass organization, if we can go down and not just limit it at a leadership level, that it should also go down to ordinary people. Thank you very much. But the issue that I wanted to find out as well, I see that the PO and the PDO, there are only a few provinces were mentioned. Just want clarity why only those few provinces. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nopala. I think all of us, as we engage and have listened, we had a big interest in this presentation and having an understanding that public participation is actually the core of our institution, and as public reps, it's very important that when we engage or when we do our work, we take along the public, we seek mandate and the utilization of the institutions that we have or the offices that we have, the PCOs. Very, very interesting, and all the sectors as suggested by Honorable Khai. I think you will take that forward. Is Honorable Singh on? I see your video is on, Honorable.
Yes,
Okay.
no, thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm sorry, I'm using two MacBooks and I didn't realize the cursor was on the other one and not on this one. And I'm couldn't find it, so I had to switch the other one off. So I'm back with you. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, firstly, thank you for the presentation. Yeah, there are a couple of issues that I want to address. One is the whole issue of petitions. I see there was quite a bit of emphasis on petitions. And yes, petitions are good, but through no fault of some of us political parties, I find that one political party takes full advantage of petitions, and good luck, and that's good. But I think perhaps we need in our in the training sessions that take place, at the beginning of a new term, that the whole issue of petitions be addressed with members of Parliament, so that they know exactly how to go about getting. I know it's written down, but they know exactly how to go about getting petitions, what process is followed, etc., etc. And then also, I think the issue of programming of petitions for debate. I mean, this has got nothing to do with the administration, but I think we've got to make sure that these petitions don't just, stay on for a year or 2 years, and then no attention is given to it. I know in the NCOP, you are very proactive in terms of petitions, and there are many petitions, but perhaps we can do some more education in respect of petitions, because it's a good way of getting to know what certain public concerns are. The second issue that I want to just talk about is the constituency officers, and I don't know, Honorable Chair and colleagues and STP and others, whether and I'm also saying it from my own political party, whether we really living up to making constituency officers really constituency officers. Firstly, you sometimes you don't have the staff, you don't have the equipment in those offices. So is there a standard way of equipping constituency officers. I mean, the office of the Speaker and the NCOP chair are classic examples of what constituency officers should be like. But is there a way of budgeting for a programmatic refurbishment of constituency officers to make them in a particular standard which Parliament can be proud of? So that's something I'm just placing on the table for constituency officers. And then the other thing I came across the other day, and this is I think for Motapo, is the Parliament channel. I know now, and Honorable Khorova referred to this with the situation we find ourselves in Parliament, lack of space, etc. But the Parliament channel, I know one political party has the public have weekly interactions with their leader, and there can be live interaction. And perhaps in the 7th Parliament moving forward, we must have a sort of a timetable where we invite, leaders of different political parties or their chief whips or whatever to participate in this interactive programs with the community. So, you advertise them. It's just like how there were briefings during COVID and the time of disaster, where the public can interact with you, but we do it officially from within Parliament, because you have a studio, you have everything else, but you give every single party an opportunity, or party leader, to interact with public at different times. And then the last issue that I want to raise, Chairperson, is the issue of public hearings. The public hearings on legislation, etc. Sometimes I feel that it becomes a tick the box exercise. We do it because we have to do it, but I think we have to be more creative in the way we do it, because I'll be very interested to know what the average cost of a single public hearing is on legislation, for example. And I think the administration needs to provide that to us, not only the cost for the day, but even the pre-costs, because there are recce teams sent out there to meet with the public, to meet with organizations, etc. How much does it actually cost? I would think it runs into millions to have one public hearing. And the issue is, do we get what we want out of these public hearings? So I think we need to rethink how we redesign public hearings. And then, you have a public hearing by the province, you have a public hearing by the NCOP, and you have a public hearing by the NA. Now, one understands we all have different mandates and responsibilities, but there's got to be some kind of meeting of minds here where we can maximize the efficiency and reduce the cost of these public hearings. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. And I think, members, one thing that I am very passionate about is good to hear Parliament now considering or planning to utilize the community radio station in full force, because those community radio stations, if we are not utilizing them as the public institution, how do we make sure, or how are we going to encourage departments or government to utilize them? And those are the very strategic communication channels nearer to the communities. They have that relationship with the community where they are. So I think I want to indicate that I'm very passionate about it, and I'm impressed. Honorable Bratiseth.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm sorry I joined late. I was under the impression the meeting was starting at 8:30, as it normally does. And also I had problems getting the link, but it's been sorted out by Cindy, so thanks to her. Chairperson, just a couple of things. The first thing is just to tie on to what Honourable Singh said about petitions. Unfortunately, Chair, I must say I don't share his enthusiasm for the way in which it's handled in the NCOP. And I will give you a personal example. I submitted a petition on behalf of the Underberg community in November 2019. And in August 2022, I was called to appear in front of that committee. That is simply not acceptable. Petitions by their very nature pertain to matters that are urgent and that need to be urgently rectified. And we have to find a way, and I've been beating this drum for a long time, since the start of this committee, since the start of the time I was on this committee, is that we have to find a way in which they processed a lot quicker. They need to appear in front of that committee within a month. That's got to happen. And Chairperson, I just think that we're really, really dropping the ball in terms of a parliamentary mechanism to wait a year and a half to hear it at committee level. And frankly, if that's the case, then let's change the rules and remove petitions as a parliamentary mechanism, because one wants to give residents hope that their voice will be heard, and then it's just an absolute farce. So either drop it or let's fix it. I obviously would prefer to fix it. But people need to understand, the residents out there need to understand that when somebody says to them, I'll submit a petition for you, it actually means something. Otherwise, the institutions of parliament slowly but surely are eroding, and people just have no confidence in us anymore. To take that further to my next point, Chairperson, you know, this is now I'm coming towards the end of my second term now, and I remember in the first term and into the second term before COVID hit and everything closed down, I had great pride in receiving, and I'm sure everybody on this platform feels the same, when we got requests from delegations, from friends, from family, from young students who said, can we please come and see Parliament? It was always one of the proudest things I've ever done as a parliamentarian, was walking them around Parliament, showing them all the buildings, telling them about the history, telling them about the new history, showing them how things change quickly, and how we became an amazing democratic country and all that sort of thing. But also very important in that showing of guests to Parliament was how fantastic Parliament looked. Neat, clean, everything perfectly orderly, everything perfectly functioning. And I always held that out to the guests as a perfect example of what we can achieve in South Africa. Because we all know that many of us, our government buildings don't look like that. But it was that beacon of hope that if we could get our stuff together, everything could look like this. And now, Chairperson, I have to sadly reflect that I walk around Parliament, it's disheveled, it's shabby, and I'm not talking about the terrible fire sections we went to 2 weeks ago. I'm talking about generally, when I walked out of the NCOP, Chairperson, which you also serve in, when you walk out of the NCOP and you head to the right through those big main gates, on the right-hand side, there was just a pile of refuse. And it wasn't just the plastic bags that the wind had blown in. It was a pile of refuse. The weeds hadn't been pulled. I really want to ask the STP, can there be an absolute drive over the next, certainly over this recess, to get Parliament looking spick and span again? Old coffee cups lying around on window ledges outside of buildings. It's just looking really, really shabby. And that comes to that broken window issue. When there's one broken window, then people don't care about leaving a dirty coffee cup on the ledge, and people don't care about taking it away. And over a period of time, it just leads to the general shabbiness of our Parliament. And this may sound like just aesthetics, but when people visit Parliament, they see that, and slowly but surely those little layers of veneer are taken away from our Parliament. And with those layers of veneer that get stripped away, so does the respect for the institution get stripped away to a point where people will one day say, what on earth is the value of Parliament? And that is an incredibly dangerous place to be in as a democracy, incredibly dangerous. We've got to pick that up. In terms of public hearings, my third point, I think we're missing a trick here. Virtual town halls are a reality, Chairperson. They happen all the time. There is no doubt that we have the technology to set up the audio-visual systems in a hall completely distant and remote from Parliament, and to have virtual town halls to augment, please, this is very important, to augment our visits. In order for us to have more engagements with public, we could practically have an engagement once per month with the people of our country via virtual town halls. Those facts come in, they get to speak on the microphone. There's a video camera directly on them so you can see their faces clearly. They can see us on a big screen, but you don't have the massive cost of transporting the entire committee and entire NCOP out to Ugu like the last time, and the huge costs involved in hiring all that. But in actual fact, we can hear from the people of South Africa directly to us, and we can take their comments, and that could be just standard maintenance things that happen once a month, and maybe a delegation of MPs are selected once a month, not all of us, but selected once a month to serve on the committee that receives submissions from the public on whatever subject. But just a monthly engagement with the people of South Africa in particular areas, link together. All the technology is there to do that. And I don't think we always have to go out on these massive junkets that cost huge amounts of money and take us actually away from other parliamentary work we're doing. We could still do our annual taking parliament to the people, but we could do once a month or even bi-monthly engagements with the public of South Africa via virtual town halls. That is something I think we really need to consider, because the costs are way down. And I agree with Honourable Singh. The normal taking part in the parliament is hugely expensive. This is a way in which we can work around it. And then finally, Chairperson, I'd just like an update. 2 weeks ago, we were told that the work on, and forgive me if this has been covered, the work on floors 4 and 5 in Plain Street building was due to start for the officers. Can we, and I believe it was due to start, I think the week after we had that meeting where we did the inspection of the fire damage sections. Just like to have an update on how that's going. Because if we've already missed the first week or the first 10 days, then that project, the whole idea is it would be done by the end of recess. So when MPs came back, they could start taking occupation. Can we please just get an update on that? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Pratasad. I'm happy that the two secretaries are here. We also have Advocate Pindela from the NCOP, issues that need his attention, but I want to believe that you're working as a team, not as individuals. And while we are focusing on public participation, I think we should also look inwardly, focus on ourselves as an institution. You know, something that might make public to lose an interest in following issues or utilizing or having a misunderstanding on the mandate of the of Parliament is that we are just talking over each other, debating, fighting on issues, and really the resolution or the decision at the end of the day fall through the cracks in the process of them following what is Parliament doing. So my main concern is that let us make sure that we find or we strengthen, if it's there, we strengthen a way of having a follow-up, the tracking system on decisions that are being taken by Parliament, so that also the public is encouraged that whatever they have raised, there's a conclusion or there's a decision on what has been raised. Committees on issues that they have raised, because I think they raise these issues representing their constituencies, are being taken care of and having been resolved in the houses. Those resolutions are being followed up, and we can see the change and get a feedback from the respective government department or institutions that we have resolved on. Honourable Gadebe.
No, thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, everyone on the platform. Chairperson, the first thing which I'll lash on is the issue of appreciating the report. I think the report is very comprehensive and then is putting the parliament itself on a new pedestal, because this issue of public participation is very important. Why do I say that, Chairperson? Because there was this research which was done by the Human Sciences Research Council, which indicated that the people of South Africa, they no longer trust democracy. It means that the level of trust is going down. And some of that level of trust can come on the issue that sometimes they get confused about the separation of powers between the executive, parliament, and the judiciary itself. That's why they sometimes expect the MPs to go and speak with the magistrates, whereas the magistrates you cannot even influence their decisions. So I think that this issue of public education offices are very, very, very important. But the issue is, how is the reach on the ground? How far is it? Because on the day, the citizens of South Africa are going to become disillusioned with democracy. It's very dangerous. Because what is very important is that they must continuously be able to go and vote, so that we know that the government which is in place during a particular time is coming from the majority of the citizens. So I think that what can this office of public education do to improve the perception of the importance in participating in the democratic processes? Honorable Singh, actually what they indicated is that in KZN, actually, that's where the distrust is very high. So I think that as Parliament, we must do something in the build up towards 2024 elections. Number two, Chair, on the issue of public participation is very important. I know that we tend to only go on public hearings only when we deal with the bills. But the public hearings cannot only be limited to the bills. I've got a privilege that I've been in this parliament for quite a long time. When I was still in the portfolio committee, it was then the portfolio committee of agriculture and land. There's something we used to do. There was a time where the food prices skyrocketed in the market. We held public hearings around the food prices. We called all the retail shops, Abo Pick and Pay, Abo Spar, Abo ShopRite. They had to come and present what is the cause and effect that the food prices are rising. But not only those, even the community organizations, they come and participate. So that's why when we look at that time, the confidence of the people they had in parliament, the democracy was very high, because we tended to deal with the issues which affect them direct. So on that one issue, which is very topical, which is coming up, I think that one goes straight to the section which is dealing with international relations. I think that as the BRICS summit is coming in August, and then in October, somewhere later, September, October, there's going to be a parliamentary summit of the BRICS countries. I'll implore that division of parliament to call for public hearings, if it must be done by us, so that the public can understand the geopolitical change which is happening international, so that we take the population of the country on board, so that they understand that some of the decisions as the country, why do we take them? Why, as a country, we are in AGOA, but at the same time we work with China, we work with Russia, we work with India, we work in BRICS. So it is the duty of Parliament to articulate those things, so that we take our population on board. The other issue, Chair, is the issue of the PCO. When you look at the strategic map of Parliament, of the 6th Parliament, the issue of PCO is very central. But you look at the budget which was presented last week, the budget on the issue of PCO, there was just a marginal increase. And that one is hampering yourself. Why was there a marginal increase? Is it because we don't have audited number of constituency offices? What is it? Because if we can properly resource the constituency offices, so that when the people go and report issues on the constituency foot, it must find a reflection on Parliament. So what will happen here is that most of the time, the issue of the constitution, it will depend whether the MP is in a particular portfolio committee. So when you speak to that ministry, they tend to react fast. But I'd say not all ministries are like that. No, when you speak about the Minister of Home Affairs, I've never been in Home Affairs. But when there are issues which arise in my constitution around Home Affairs issues, they respond on time. So the people tend to have confidence. If they're like, they know that they need passport within 5 days. You call the ministry, you call the department, within 2 to 3 days, the passport is there. That thing gives confidence to the people. So I think that the issue of auditing the PCOs, and then what is a model PCO? What must it have? I think those are the things, so that in particular speaking about the tools of trade, so that it's will be able to respond. Because when you deal with the PCO, if there are any bills which are being, so all those bills must be transmitted to the PCO automatically, so that those people in the PCO who are interested in that, they must be made aware of that this bill. I can make an example. I'm from a rural constituency. When we're dealing with the issue of Expropriation Act, I had to inform my constituents that no, there's this bill which is coming, is going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. But it only happens because I'm interested in them, in that aspect. But there are also other departments which are coming with particular programs, which I might not be interested in. But you find that the members of the committee might be interested. So I think that there must be some sort of a standardization of what is expected of the PCO. Chairperson, as I said, I really appreciate this presentation. I think it's a good basis in moving forward on the 7th Parliament. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Khadebe. Honorable Kaiso, I think this is the last hand, according to what I see. Honorable Kaiso.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. My apology, Chair. This meeting coincided with a standing committee on appropriation, so I'm just moonlighting between the meetings, so I'm not sure that one would be more effective. But then, Chair, I just wanted to also appreciate this a very important presentation, which map out a way forward in as far as the 6th Democratic Parliament is concerned, and really appreciate that presentation. And secondly is to say I agree 100% with what my honorable member, Honorable Khatebe said, in as far as, in strengthening the parliamentary constituency offices, and also expanding making sure that now information reaches our people, and how the world shapes around them. They should be able to also to engage on that. Otherwise, we will sit in a situation where the example that was given in as far as participation or involvement of business in as far as price hikes and issues that of moral values, they also have a contribution to issues of moral values. So it cannot be expected that it's only the state or the government that would all the way, try to explain, justify. I think in upholding the democracy, they also have that particular responsibility, to uphold public values. So they must do something also as the business people, because out there, people might assume, is this parliament is hiking the price food deliberately so to suffocate us. So if we have in these public hearings, we fine-tune things in such a way that now at some particular point, we're able to have public hearings when there is of issue of national interest or international interest. So I agree 100% that I think with the upcoming BRICS summit, there must be a way that should we must have a way, Parliament must have a way to, you know, to engage in a particular way that seek to, you know, engage a particular issues of international interest, more especially those that affect the poor. I mean, we are a third world developing countries. There are many issues that affect us. So through the Parliament, we need to pick them up, but in a certain way, where the ordinary people or the ordinary poor on the ground are able to raise them themselves, because they sometimes one feel that they often think that we are just simply taking decision without, you know, consulting them, and they are of so importance to them, such as what has happened to I mean, to financial market crisis, what has caused that, you know, etc. How is our country responding to these crises from worldwide yeah. So I'm just giving you an example of many issues of interest. So I want to agree. Chair, there's one matter that I really don't agree, unless maybe I did not, I missed the point when the member was raising it, that there should be an establishment of a committee that would constitute of members of Parliament doing this and this for communication purpose. I don't think it's necessary. Already the Parliament has has established structures that deals with the issues of IT and communication. So maybe it will be just a repetition of this and giving us unnecessary duty. So I think we must settle with what we are having now, the Joint Standing Committee and the parliamentary communication, you know, and the IT structure. So I just wanted to raise that point. So yes, I agree with this. I think this point of, you know, reaching out to the rural communities and you know, and in the informal areas, it's a problem because I can tell you that not everyone has got a Twitter, has got all these accounts of social media. So our focus of this social media is only up to a certain level of your strata in the society, actually. To be honest, it goes up to a certain level of strata in the society, and the rest, which is the rest of the majority, poor working class, do not really are able to reach on to Twitter and because of their number of factors such as availability of data, etc. Yes, the Parliament will be doing its own, its best to reach to everyone, but I can tell you when it comes to Wi-Fi, it's a problem. So that area first, it has to correct. It has to correct first the availability of, you know, Wi-Fi in those areas. So there must be first something that has to happen before our ordinary people can also be able to go to WhatsApp, you know, those are able to, because like I'm saying, it only cover a certain strata in the society and the rest of the majority do not get. So otherwise, I agree and appreciate the input and the report that has been presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kaiso. Can I now, if there's no other hand over to Team Parliament?
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the honorable members for their comments and as well as questions and the appreciation of the report. I think just to begin with Honorable Mlezani with regard to, and I think this is a matter that the last point that Honorable Kaiso was raising, because I know he's very passionate about the necessity to reach the far-flung areas, informal settlements and rural villages which are otherwise not having the same connections, you know, or closeness to information as people in urban areas and townships. So our communication really approach, as Ms. Beck was presented, it's a mixed, you know, package of communication interventions to ensure that the messages of Parliament, as well as the opportunities that Parliament present to society to participate in its processes, are also enjoyed by the communities that are in rural villages, etc. So, for instance, we do have, as we have indicated, a radio community program.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Pastor.
Chairperson, sorry, I'm just coming on a point of clarity. I just want to make it clear, because I think it was Honorable Moletsani misunderstood what I was saying about the virtual town halls. I know fully well, I'm not living in an ivory tower in a suburban area. I spend a lot of time in rural areas. I understand that rural areas don't have access to Wi-Fi and data and all those costs. I was talking about if you have an engagement with a community that have a particular problem, that community comes to a hall where an audio-visual system is set up there for them with all the requisite data and information that they require, that they can engage, but it's not necessary for an entire parliamentary delegation to go there. That the link, the technology can provide the link. I fully understand that there are areas with data problems and with financial issues. I'm not living in an ivory tower, which was the implication being made. It's that we can use technology to link a public meeting, an in-person public meeting with Parliament without the necessity of having the huge cost of going out there. That was the point I was trying to make. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable President, I think the point that you are raising is correct, so that you are not being misinterpreted. But I think going forward, let's give Parliament an opportunity to give responses. And afterwards, if you are not somehow satisfied or 100% satisfied with the responses, or there's something that you want to clarify, let's wait until they finish. Then you can come in. But for now, I've allowed you to drive your point through. Thank you so much. Over to you, Parliament. Mutapo.
Yes. Yeah, Moloto Mutapo. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. So we have got.
Let's correct it. It's Moloto Mutapo, because yeah, it might be yeah. Thank you.
So we do have a community radio program in partnership with the GCIS, in that we are using their studio, and from time to time we will connect the leaders of Parliament, the chairpersons of oversight committees from both houses, with the radio stations, all the community radio stations, the length and breadth of South Africa, to discuss issues like bills, to get inputs on a wide range of issues that are before the committees or that are before the House, and so on and so on. So we have signed, memorandums of understanding with community radio stations, organizations like your National Community Radio Forum, to ensure that we, to the extent possible, we cut the cost of such activities, because they are very much costly. I mean, for a 1 hour community radio program, it will cost between 200 to 300,000 rands. So we are trying as much as possible to ensure that we have got as many programs as possible, but at reasonable cost. We do also, in order to reach those communities, we do have, for instance, when there are bills that are before committees and there is a schedule of public hearings, we will have live reads that are taking place in indigenous radio stations that are under the public broadcaster. For instance, if there is a program of public hearings in a province like Limpopo, we will target those radio stations that are there. Your Tobela FM, your Mungana Lonene, your Parapara FM, and perhaps also even the Metro FM, because it is national radio stations that is listened in all the provinces, and it is one of those radio stations with the highest listenership. The zero rating of the website, because we're in the process and we're about to conclude the zero rating of the website. We have been talking with cell phone service providers. We've got one that has agreed to come on board, and we are in discussion with others as well. And if it comes to a push, we'll ensure that we'll look at our budget as well. Here, really, the intention is to ensure that we cater for. We know that there are problems with networks in the villages, but there are many other villages that have got a very good network, and we know that there is an increased ownership of smartphones amongst the people who are residing in those areas, and therefore those who are able to connect, we want them to be able to connect to the website of the Parliament, to be able to interact with committees, to interact with members of Parliament, to interact with the processes of Parliament without having to have any data. So that will enable them to be able to really, when it comes to the Parliament website, to be able to download and to have access to that information without having to buy data. We have also been in discussion with MultiChoice, as we know that this Parliament TV is part of the sponsorship by MultiChoice, and we've been in discussion with them to say that, because honorable members, if you, for instance, you drive around the informal settlements or in the villages, because of the network problems for television, you will find that the many households there will prefer that they have a satellite dish of MultiChoice, even if it's as very cheapest bouquet, so that they can be able to have access to the channels and to those limited channels that that particular bouquet provides. So our discussion is therefore to ensure that Parliament television is not only accessible in those premium bouquets that people in the suburbs, etc., are able to afford, but it's also available across all the bouquets, including the cheapest one that you will find those communities subscribing to. So that is really part of a package of interventions to ensure that we reach people and we are able to empower them in order for them to participate in the processes of Parliament. Because as Ms. Beck was saying in the presentation, the first two slides, we really was emphasizing what have the courts been saying to Parliament about meaningful public participation. And that really is very important to ensure that people are empowered so that they are able to participate in the process of Parliament. Honorable Gwahube is saying that sometimes during public hearings, she doesn't feel that those communities that are there, they've been engaged in order for them to understand what they are there for. I must say that whenever there are public hearings taking place in the communities, etc., that engagement will be preceded by public education office colleagues who will go to the ground to mobilize communities to ensure that communities have got transportation, which is funded by Parliament, to ensure that they are ferried to the venue to participate. But also part of that process is to educate those communities about the bill that is being that they are being consulted on. So yes, it might very well be that some of the people that will attend on the day might not have been part of those that were educated on the bill, but that is really a process that unfolds and that characterizes such kind of public engagement. And I think we do take that and will ensure that we enhance that area of work. And of course, also, as I've said, there is also, it might not be happening for every public hearing because of the cost factor, but we do run those community radio stations, particularly targeting those areas where there will be public hearings to ensure that there is a proper discussion and education about those matters that are coming before those public hearings. You have indicated also raised the issue that we need to engage more on social media platforms and to make Parliament and its messaging across social media platforms to be relevant to the people of South Africa. I could not agree more. And that is the reason why we are working on the creation of a mechanism, social media, a capability, forming a social media team within the Parliamentary Communication Services to ensure that we take up this area very well. This is an area that we've been a little bit weak on because any institution the size of Parliament really has got a social media team, and we have been we have not really done well in this regard. Even though our social media platforms, as you can see, they've been growing. And I believe that if we had a dedicated team for social media, the following will be even higher than currently is. But that is a matter that we are attending to ensure that we use optimally that platform. And also, just to add that in terms of the programming of Parliament Television, I'm sure honorable members will have realized that the Parliament Television channel is not the same channel that it was about 3 years or 4 years ago. We have improved in terms of programming. We have added very insightful, educational, and engaging content. We've got the educational documentaries that are we are running that are educating the public about, for instance, the work of the committees, the work of the two houses of Parliament. We are educating about the lawmaking processes, the importance of public hearings, the rights of South Africans to get involved, and so on and so on. So that programming has really increased, and we are continuously ensuring that we bolster the programming and we put more funding in that area, because it is an area that our annual service that we've been conducting, especially the Ipsos survey, tells us that between 80 and 90% of South Africans, not only are they receiving information about Parliament through their television, but they prefer television as a means to access information about Parliament. So that is the low-hanging fruit that really we need to ensure that it is well funded, and we continuously improve to ensure that we achieve what another honorable member was saying, that it is very important that we must create continuous platforms of public engagement between members and the public on a wide range of issues that are before Parliament. I think the issue of the thinking around people, the public being allowed back to Parliament. It is quite, I think, a tricky issue. And I think perhaps the SDP will deal with it because it has to do, of course, with COVID, but also it has to do with the fire incident that has destroyed so many venues, and it has become quite difficult for the members of the public to have access like the way they used to be, and to attend the committee meetings and so on and so on. I know that the media is allowed to attend physical meetings. We know that the guests from time to time are invited to attend as well. But one thing that really has improved the participation of the public and the involvement of the public in the processes of Parliament, such as the committee meetings and the sittings of the House. It has been really, it has come through COVID-19 because, for instance, before COVID-19, we will have about 3 or 5 YouTube channels that will be able to only through them broadcast or stream your only 5 committee meetings at a time. Now we have got about 20 or more YouTube channels that so enabling us to be able to stream 20 committee meetings simultaneously, which is very important because it means that more and more committees are being made accessible live to the public than before. And through those channels, because they include social media channels, we are able to get contributions and views of South Africans as well with regard to what is happening in Parliament. I think this also covers the issue that Honorable Khai was raising. Honorable Khai was also, in addition, raising the issue of the parliamentary democracy offices. These 3, and what is their relationship with the PCOs? The 3 PDOs that are in the provinces that Ms. Beck was illustrating in one of the slides, they were really created, they were established as a pilot project to see how the parliamentary democracy offices can assist the work that is currently being done by the parliamentary constituency offices. So they are supposed to complement and to strengthen the work that the parliamentary constituency offices are doing, and to ensure that there is interface on a continuous basis between Parliament and the various communities. So I think at some point, at the right appropriate time, a proper assessment will be made with regard to the years that they have been established and the years that they've been working, to see if whether there is a need to roll them out throughout the other provinces and throughout the country, or if they have not been useful, etc. So that assessment, I believe, will come. The issue, just on the issue also of that Honorable Khai raised with regard to partnerships with the civil society and others, and I agree, of course, that engaging in collaboration with civil society organizations, academic institutions, and electoral body for the purpose of ensuring voter education, I agree, it holds a significant importance for Parliament because it allows for the dissemination of accurate and comprehensive information to the public. It allows for enabling, of an informed electorate. And of course, by leveraging the expertise of these stakeholders, Parliament can develop educational initiatives that provide unbiased, details about voting procedures, your candidates' profiles, and other political issues. So this knowledge, of course, through this interaction will be you know, a necessary empowerment to the electorate and to the public to participate in the electoral processes of the country. And this is definitely part of the plan that we've put forward. Honorable Singh raised the issues of petitions and the training of members of parliament, especially in the National Assembly, to handle on how to handle petitions. I believe that Honorable Klaso is on the platform. I'm sure he will agree with you, Honorable Singh, with regard to that, particularly because how the institution is processing public petitions or petitions is different from the National Assembly has got its own way, where petitions can only be processed through the member of parliament, and whereas in the National Council of Provinces is different. There is a committee that is dedicated to dealing with that, and members of the public can directly petition that house to deal with the issues that really they are struggling with within the communities that they live. And I must also say that part of the overhaul and the strengthening of the website as a public information resource really is to create a page that so that we modernize this process of public petitions. So to create a page on the website to ensure that members of the public are able to deposit their petitions for the attention of the institution. The issue of the budget for the PCOs, the refurbishment, etc. I think this is a conversation that needs to be had. I don't think we can be able to find a solution in this meeting because there are several other issues that must be considered. Because if you look at the offices themselves, some of the offices are being hired. They are not really owned by Parliament. They are being hired. The parliamentary constituency offices essentially are controlled politically by the by political parties. They hire some of them from private individuals, etc. So to refurbish them and to do certain things on them might be a little bit tricky. But I think that there is a necessity to have a comprehensive discussion really with regard to the issues that are being raised regarding funding, regarding creating the minimal. I know that in the education sector, for instance, there are minimal standards for schools. And I believe that part of the discussion to deal with the issues that Honorable Singh was raising is really to have a discussion about what should be the minimal standards for parliamentary constituency offices, what will be what kind of funding will enable the PCOs to be able to perform their jobs optimally. Because that slide that Ms. Beck was showing is very troubling in terms of the perceptions of various communities in terms of their interaction with parliamentary constituency offices. You will see that less than 20, and I think it's around 15 or 14 that says that they have actually interacted with parliamentary constituency offices, meaning that the great majority of South Africans have never interacted with their PCOs. They don't know whether they exist within those communities or not. So there is quite really an important discussion to be had, because also the location of those parliamentary constituency offices is very important. Because you might find that some of them are located in towns and which are far away from the villages, where villagers need to travel to take a taxi in order to go to town to raise their issues with those constituency offices. So I think there is a discussion really to be had with regard to this. And with regard to creating space for political parties to interact with the public through the Parliament TV channel, Honorable Singh, you are saying that perhaps it is something that we must consider in the 7th Parliament. I must say that this is something that we want to achieve even before the 7th Parliament. It is something that has been taking place, but at a small scale. And this is something that, having received some little bit of a budget towards that, towards the broadcasting service of Parliament, this is something that we are working on enhancing as soon as possible. The issues of how the NCOP is handling petitions, as the Honorable Chair has said, Advocate Pindela is on the platform. I'm sure he will deal with that. The issue of virtual town halls between the for interaction between members of the public and the MPs, Honorable Brottensen, I could not agree more. And then finally, I think the issue of some of the issues that were raised by Honorable Khadebe in terms of the PCOs, the model and the concept, I think these are forming part of the issues that I've raised, that were raised by Honorable Singh as well, that I said really a proper discussion must be had with regard to this, so that the solutions that will really reposition parliamentary constituency offices to as a powerful interface between Parliament and the public. That kind of discussion must be had so that we enable these important offices to achieve that. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I've left some of the questions, but the colleagues can be able to reflect on them if I've left any. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Team Parliament. I don't know if your colleagues will want to make additions. If there's anything that you have left out, they can do so.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's Beg. I just wanted to touch on the question raised by Arul Wahube, particularly around how we measure success of our public education programs. I think the ultimate test is when we've educated a citizen and they are able to participate in the public hearing and be able to make meaningful in the public hearing. That for us would be a sign of a successful education program. But that is all informed by the time that is given to the teams to prepare, the times to draw on the demographics of the areas where we're going into, because that informs the methodology that the team will then use towards the education program. So in terms of staff capacity, we have looked at the capacity of our teams to engage and deal with stakeholder segmentation and to adapt the methodologies that we use for our educations. So all the public education staff have done a course in public participation at the University of Stellenbosch at the EQF level of 8. We're looking now at more practical programs to enable them to improve the methods that we use to educate different citizens, different age groups, different cultures, so that we can enhance the education workshops. I think maybe one example that I would want to share with the committee was the inputs for a closed public hearing that both the Portfolio Committee and the Select Committee on social, I think it was the Social Development Committee that dealt with the Children's Amendment Bill. And in line with the United Nations Child Rights Participation Framework, our public education team prepared children to participate with the committee in a closed section. They also prepared the committee in terms of what the rights of the child is, in terms of that participation and that engagement. It was a virtual engagement. I attended both. I thought it was one of the successes in terms of where we were able to identify a key stakeholder for a piece of legislation and to create a platform for them to participate effectively in a bill that's put impact on how we deal with children. Honourable Khakub has also raised the issue about access to Parliament. We have taken on board the decision by the NAPC that committee meetings must all be on the precincts. We will have to take into account, obviously, health and safety considerations. Secretary of Parliament is tasked in terms of the Occupational Health and Safety Act to ensure not only the safety of parliamentary staff and members, but also all visitors to Parliament. So that is something that will need to be taken into consideration as Parliament is soon going to become a building site. We are engaging with universities, but we want to strengthen that program. I've had experience in the provincial legislature where we've had universities incorporate a public education program on the role of the legislature and make it part and parcel of an assessment tool for particularly students in the law faculty, in the political science faculty. That's something that we would want to do. We have, in fact, taken on board the voter education program. We're busy working on that and preparing for that towards maybe the latter part of this year. And we have taken on board the proposals of ensuring that stakeholders who are impacted by budget votes be invited. And then just to add to what my colleague has said around the parliamentary democracy offices. These offices were piloted in 2008. And in 2015, there was an assessment done of the 3 parliamentary democracy offices, and the choice of provinces were largely based on the rural nature of those provinces and the provinces that were furthest located from Parliament. The 2015 assessment was done by an external research company, and it did indicate that these offices were viable and that they were important in terms of executing Parliament's public consultation mandate. Speaker Mbete at the time, as well as Chairperson of the NCOP, Honourable Modise at the time, agreed that we should retain the 3 parliamentary democracy offices and that Parliament should consider extending it to the other provinces. But at the time, due to budgetary constraints, we were not able to pursue that. So that assessment of PDOs was done. And this is why we've continued currently with those offices. So those 3 offices, together with the Public Education Office, those are the teams who are responsible for executing this mandate. There were a number of inputs that were made on petitions, and in our strategy session, we have discussed it. And so one of the targets that we've looked at to focus on in this financial year is to look at the integrated petitions framework, to look at what it is that's happening in the NA. NA has got a particular process. The NCOP has got specific guidelines, a specific committee that looks at petitions. And our proposal is to look at an integrated petitions framework. So that as an individual citizen, I should follow a particular process when submitting a petition to Parliament. In the same way, there's been a number of comments around parliamentary constituency officers, the funding thereof. It is also one of the projects that we are embarking on this financial year, to do a review of the constituency offices and also to look at the support for those offices. There was a question by, I think it was Honourable Singh, around the cost of a public hearing. On average, a public hearing in a district costs about 300,000. So if a committee is going to go to 3 districts in a province, it will be between 900 to 1 million for a public hearing. And these are factors that the House Chairperson for committees has taken on board, and therefore considerations to whether the committee needs to go to all 9 provinces, whether committees need to go to all 3 districts, 4 districts in a province, taking into account that both the NA and the NCOP has got the responsibility for this mandate. We need to look at leveraging between the 2 houses in terms of where committees go. There was another comment about Honourable Khadebe raised the question of what is the reach on the ground, and this is what we try and assess through our annual Ipsos survey, which we do it on an annual basis so that we can get year-on-year data in terms of whether we have reached citizens, whether citizens understand the role of Parliament. But as I've indicated, it does it is dependent on our resources that we have available. And because of the limited resources, those collaborations with civil society organizations and partnerships that become important to enable us to improve our reach. Honorable Khadebe also raised the issue around education. We've been of the view that public participation does not only support the lawmaking mandate of Parliament, it underpins the oversight mandate, the cooperative governance mandate, as well as that of international engagement. So citizens need to know which international agreements South Africa is signature to and how does it impact their lives. So in line with the BRICS Parliamentary Forum that's taken place, my colleague Sisitole is project managing that. We've already been assigned public participation plan put together to educate citizens around what is the implications of BRICS, what is the BRICS Parliamentary Forum, and how it will impact. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beck. I think maybe I need to suggest that you talk to IT to check on your sound from your gadget. One is really struggling to put up with what you're presenting, and I think this was also raised by Honorable Khadebe and other members. Just check on the sound on your gadget. And thanks, Mr. Mutapo. The STP, I see your hand is up. I think you'll be the last one to talk. Honorable Guy, so I've been trying to communicate with you through the chat platform here and even send you a WhatsApp. Do you still want to come back? Or it's a legacy help? I also requested the host to lower the hand of Honorable Kaiso. Can we please do that so that we don't leave him out? Okay, he's still up. Okay, Mr.
No,
George,
Chair, my hand is not up.
It was up, sir. Now it has gone down. It was up. Okay, it's fine. It's not a train smash. Mr. George?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I just thought three issues to emphasize the points my colleagues have covered. There's one area that has not been responded to, that Honorable Brauteset has raised. It's around cleaning of Parliament and what he calls a de-shelved institution. I would like to undertake to look into this matter and make sure that this issue is attended to. I was hoping my colleague on the platform would speak to it. It's something we'll look into and hopefully effect improvements in those areas that he has indicated, dirty and strewn rubbish across the board, broken windows and things left there. We will attend to that to make sure that the situation is addressed. The second issue is, when will the 5th and 6th floor be ready? We were supposed to complete the work by mid-June. And unfortunately, the contractor that was supposed to start had difficulties after being appointed, and it withdrew. We had to go back immediately to ensure a replacement. That replacement has now been secured. It will be introduced on site on Monday, this coming Monday. The deadline we have given them is end of June. So hopefully, as the constituency period will start on the 19th of June, right up to August, we will complete those offices as planned. And if there were to be any minor snags or any further delay, at least the period of June buys us time to remedy any matter. But the clear deadline is end of June to complete that work. The issue of reactivating the public to visit Parliament, I think Mr. Mutapo has covered that quite extensively. indeed, with the current constraints of not having buildings across the board, we will, however, look at complementing that as much as we can in the context of acquiring more committee rooms to make sure that we truly make Parliament what it is, a Parliament of the people. The area about funding and resourcing adequately all the constituency office, public democracy offices, and so on, we are looking at those areas. And we will very soon complete our work on the organizational redesign and ensure that the various divisions that are undercapacitated, we build from the pilots of those three provinces and make sure that there's a clear approach to constituencies and so on. An interesting issue Honorable Singh has raised around, do we know the cost? I think my colleague Ms. Berg has indicated between 900 and 1 million. The point is, however, not only that cost, it goes beyond that. It's at the heart of the funding model of Parliament. If you look at various reports raised in the state capture recommendations and various areas where we are required to deepen the public participation, it would require of us to go through the funding model of Parliament in detail, and we are busy with that work to make sure that we understand exactly the full thread of lawmaking, the full thread of public participation, and all the components that shape the budget drivers of Parliament. So we believe that the funding model that we are busy developing would help us to have a better approach to a structured interaction with National Treasury to fund Parliament properly. The last point is what Honorable Khadebe has raised about Parliament's effectiveness to tackle issues as they come, and also the point Honorable Broaden has raised about always hitting us on the issue of the public petition system. Indeed, he has raised that quite a lot, and the agility that is required would require of us to ensure that this is funded properly, but also the agency in dealing with the matter as they come. So part of building the pillar on responsive Parliament, we will be looking at that to make sure that we are very clear about creating the necessary agency in responding to any matters of petition. So a revamped petition system would hopefully help us to get to that. The issues of dealing with issues that affect communities, he made the reference of bread prices and so on. I was reminded this morning, honorable members, just looking at one community in Johannesburg, Orange Farm. It's covered live now by the media. Communities in Orange Farm haven't had energy for 3 years. And those are the areas that when we have the public offices as well as constituency offices, the extent to which issues coming from the ground are fed into committees, whether it is energy committee, to make sure that there can be these issues raised by society, to make sure that people can see that Parliament is agile, Parliament responds to our issues, and these issues are addressed. We don't have media discovering that people do not have energy connection for 3 years in areas where there's grid coverage. So it's matters like those that would help us to bring back the public trust and ensure that public participation is yielding meaningful results. And we will undertake to do that as part of our macro strategy to ensure that budget resource of Parliament also create necessary agility for committees to discharge their work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. George. I think I have raised an issue on the tracking system, the improvement on the tracking system as per the decisions or resolutions that are taken in the houses. As and when the committees present their reports, there are recommendations there, and if those reports are being adopted, they become resolutions. So can you talk to that? Because from where I'm standing, I don't think we're doing well in terms of getting a feedback as committees, and also the constituencies, the communities, that what have been raised, this department is doing or is implementing the resolutions. The tracking system needs to be oiled. Can I request one of the team members or the STP or Advocate Pindela to please speak to it? We know is the mandate or the responsibility of the executive authority, but the executive authority does not do operational issues or operate alone. They work hand in glove with you as accounting officers.
Through you, Chairperson, I would ask either Mr. Kaso or Mr. Pindela to respond on the. Thanks.
Okay, Advocate.
May I? Okay.
Yes, Advocate Pindela. Is that Advocate Pindela or is that Kaso?
Kaso,
okay.
I will respond, and I'm sure Advocate Pindela will also respond.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. There is a system of tracking where the presiding officer obviously communicates the resolutions, and there is a follow-up that is done in terms of responses from the executive. But I think I have to state that that system is quite imperfect as it is at the moment. And this is part of the problem. There are some responses that come through the office of the presiding officer of the speaker, and those are referred to the committee concerned. But there are also responses that come from the executive directly to committees. So what we do not have at the moment is an integrated tracking system, which is one of the current priorities in terms of how we want to improve the oversight work of Parliament. So to answer you, Chair, there is a system, but the system needs a lot of improvement so that it can be comprehensive, and the various elements should be able to speak to each other in the process. Thank you, Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaso. I think we agree there is a system in paper. My request was that it needs to be oiled so that we can see the outcome and value for money. Advocate, do you want to make additions, or you're fine with the response?
Chair, I think to the extent that Mr. Klaso has responded, I'm satisfied. I just want to add that perhaps we should then complete that cycle with the committees themselves, then acknowledging that there has been responses and what have they done with those responses. Because I think that in most instances, the follow-ups emanate from, or the request for the follow-up emanate from the offices of the presiding officers. Instead, also committees take responsibility for following up on the resolutions of the houses. So I would propose that perhaps there should be that cycle must be completed by committees themselves also, acknowledging that they've received follow-ups. They have received their responses and what they have done with those responses, and perhaps reporting back to the House on matters that would have been undertaken to be done by the executive as to whether the executive has achieved what they had said they would achieve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate. I think, Team Parliament, you have given responses as expected, but I see some hands. Honorable Khai, and then Honorable Nisoma.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was raising my hand for something else, but I want to latch on this issue now. I've been the chairperson of a committee since the last term, and we have been submitting reports to the plenary sessions with recommendations. Not once did we receive any responses either from the office of the chairperson or from the ministers themselves. So I agree that it's an area that must be looked at. But I was raising my hand with regard to the issue of petitions. I agree with the Honorable Broaden said that, when I started also in Parliament, I started as a whip, and I used to attend the programming committee meetings. I would see the section on petition that have been submitted 2 or 3 years before. And I raise it in the committees then that, sometimes Parliament is a last resort. These people that are submitting petition have tried elsewhere, and then they come to Parliament. For them to wait for 2 years or 3 years for their matters to be attended to is wrong. So I'm saying that some of these petitions could be categorized, because some may be minor issues, or maybe they should be micro and macro issues. Those macro issues could go to the committee that is responsible for petitions. But there could be issues where a simple letter can be drafted and signed by the chairperson or the speaker, go to the MEC or minister, copy to the premier or the speaker of the province. Quickly, a response could be received. I used to personally do that with the person in the office of the chairperson, Mr. Skoll. He used to assist me quite a lot, but I think there's some bureaucracy that is taking place, because when I approached him, he was saying that provincial issues need to go to the provincial speaker, which I find it as a challenge, because I'm a MP at National Parliament. Now I was directed to go to the province, and I tried that without success. I still have issues that around the school infrastructure in the constituency that have not yet been addressed. But because of this bureaucracy that now we must go to the province, because it's a matter of the province, you can't come to Parliament. So the point I'm making, Chair, is that maybe there could be issues that are minor that should not wait for the committee of petition. For example, in the NCOP, that committee struggles because it's a committee of, there are 3 committees involved in that committee. People that are responsible for the committee attend 3 committees. So sometimes they would only have this meeting during lunch, or maybe early, between 8 and 9. So there is not even enough time for them to consider these petitions. So that's why I'm saying some of these petitions could be categorized. Some could be just a simple letter. But then others, if they are macro, they can then go to the committee where ministers or MECs are invited. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Khai. Melisuma. Honorable Lesuma.
Yes, Chair, my apologies, just that my gadget was delaying me. Good morning, Honorable Co-Chair and colleagues, and STP and your team. Chair, I'm just being opportunistic because you raise issues in terms of I would call it a tracking system or a dashboard that was referred to. That, if my memory serves me right, Chair, one of our meetings we spoke about a study tour. It's just unfortunate that it was the end of our term. I would like to suggest, if you allow me, Chair, to continue and make a suggestion on this one. I know I'm offline. Should I proceed, Chair?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. And my humble apology to do this. Probably I should also start by what Honorable Tim said. Also, I thought it's 8:30. That's why I logged in late, but it's my fault not to look at the time. Is that, Chair, we spoke about the study tour and now currently we are talking about having a full hybrid capabilities, as well as a legacy report, which was referred by Honorable Khatebe. May I suggest, Chair, to this meeting that we mandate to, so that we don't delay it any further, we mandate your good self as the co-chairs and the researcher or content advisor and follow due processes and advise us in terms of the progress in our next sitting. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can I hear if members are agreeing to the suggestion or the mandate that Honorable Lusoma is giving to the office of the co-chairpersons? Honorable Khatebe?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I think that if we can, that matter was raised. So I agree with her fully that there are a lot of things which must be done. But what I'll also put a rider on is that one, in the program, the co-chairpersons must also try to find out whether we cannot actually put it on a program, that we also go and look at what has happened with the library of UCT, which was burnt down, and what they've done, so that we can also get because we're speaking about the issue of the fire and the parliament, whatever it is, so that we can be able to get even here next door in Cape Town. But I agree with her that the office of the co-chairpersons must deal with the matter and process it and report it back to us as quickly as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. I think we are now restarting the meeting, having allowed members to speak. It looks like members have an appetite of having second bite. Honorable Tim Brataseth, your hand is up.
Yes, Chairperson, I'll be less than 30 seconds. I just want to wholeheartedly support the suggestion of Honorable Khai that petitions do not go to the petitions committee, but directly to the select committee concerned. It would take out a massive amount of the backlog, and the select committees have the time and the schedule to actually deal with it in a much faster way. And I just want to actually push that we actually drive this and we make solid representations in this regard. And I hope that the STP will take it on board. I think it's a great suggestion and it's a really good way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tim. Advocate, and I'm requesting that advocate be the last one.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. I just wanted to refer to what Honorable Broaden has said and what Honorable High has said about the petitions. And that most of the petitions deal with the line functions of select committees. You find that it's a petition on water, it's a petition on electricity, and this and so on and so on. And you find that there is a committee that deals with those functions. In most instances, these petitions go to the petitions committee, then they also go to the select committee. We request the two committees to work together, but it would be easier if the petitions are dealt with, if it's a petition indeed, because if it's dealt with by that committee concerned, because that would be in the process of conducting oversight by that committee. But secondly, also, insofar as the responses are concerned, I have noted the response by Honorable Khai that his committee has never received any response. We must indicate that the level of responses is very low. There are certain departments that are quick to respond. There are other departments that do not respond at all, even if no matter how many reminders we send to those departments. So it might be that insofar as So it might be that insofar as Honorable Hai's committee is concerned, perhaps the departments in that committee normally do not respond, because in the normal course of events, if we receive responses, we send them to, or we transmit them to the committee's consent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Advocate. Can we generally agree that we need to relook into the issue of a tracking system and oil it up? Because I don't think it's only Honorable Khai. It's just that he's fortunate because he's part of this meeting. He can raise his matter or the matter of his committee. But then we have seen it as a weakness, and we don't have to individually raise our challenges in committees. We have tried in our committee to come up with a system and try to make our own tracking system. And I was told that that is the responsibility and the mandate of the executive authority. And I should not step on that. But I have spoken to or requested the executive authority to say they must allow us to, as a committee, not as Parliament, to do that, to do our follow-ups, because when we don't see the implementation and commitment, we summon them to come to our committee to account on those issues. But it's not something that is really going to assist in terms of putting the integrity of Parliament when committees are doing as and when they wish, or what is suitable for them. So the center must just hold. We agree that let's look into it. It's a weakness, so that come 7th administration, the next committees can be able to have that line of communication or line of function between committees, executive authority, and the government department or SOEs. Having said that, honorable members, we will take the matter at the office of the co-chairpersons and try to process together with the researcher. I know we no more have the content advisor, but we will see what we can do as we implement this decision or this mandate that were given to us. Members, let me thank the team from Parliament with their presentation and responses and clarities that they have given to us. Thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation and the responses. The engagement were very fulfilling and empowering. With that, we are now releasing you together with Ntate Moloto Mothapo. I will never do that mistake again. It's just a slip of a tongue. Cindy, are we able to deal with minutes?
Yes, we are, Chairperson. We still have a quorum.
We can
proceed. Yes, we can adopt that. Can I share it?
Yes, please do.
I'm just going to open it quickly from this side. Oh no, I'm sharing the wrong one.
Why is
Apologies. I'm sharing the one that I'm working on. I'm very sorry. Let me just share
Yeah,
it from
I'm
the
surprised. Why
screen.
is it written in red?
Yeah, no, Shem, I'm so sorry. I was
Okay, it's
working on
fine.
the new set. Let me open it from here. Is it visible, Chair?
Yes, it is a meeting of the 19th of May, 2023.
Yes, I'm just changing the screen. Okay, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Can we then move, honorable members? You will stop me if there's something that you have identified and you have not communicated with the secretariat. Can we move?
This is the attendance register.
Yes, attendees here on page 1. Continuation attendees, page 2.
Yes. Then same, this is the delegation that was there.
Yes. Page 3.
The delegation.
Continuation. Page 4.
Our documents for the day. Summary. What was decided? This is the meeting proper start. The underlined black parts, Chair, is just where I identified technical mistakes that I corrected in the morning when we were meeting, when I was offline.
Okay.
And so that is page 5, page 6.
So the bolded one and underlined are the one that have been corrected.
Yes, it's just where I discovered spelling errors, but they are not substantive changes to the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just grammatical corrections.
We are now on page 8.
Page 8. Going to page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. This is the last page here.
Okay, this is the last page. Honorable members, these are the minutes of the 19th of May, 2023. And I will now request a mover for the adoption of the minutes as a true reflection of the discussion on the set date. Can I get a mover?
Chairperson, I move that the minutes be adopted.
Thank you, Honorable Khadebe. A seconder?
This is Khadebe. I move that the minutes be adopted, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Khadebe. Thank you. Seconder?
Mrs. Khaye, I second the adoption of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Honorable Khaye. Honorable members, I think we have come to the end of our meeting. Let me take this opportunity and thank you, honorable members, and not delay you any longer. Also appreciate your cooperation in terms of the changing of time, that we were able to lock in time, and as and when we are requested to adapt or to adjust to new changes, we do so. Thank you so much, honorable members, and your contributions are really welcomed and appreciated. Thank you so much. For those who are traveling, please travel safely. Those who are going to meetings, good luck and have a wonderful weekend and a busy schedule. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Honorable Chair.